What's up, everyone? Welcome to the April 26th edition of FanDuel Tournament Plays presented by Prize Picks. I'm your host, Adam Scherer. You can follow me on Twitter at ShipMyMoneyDFS. And as a reminder, you get one free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum when you sign up and make a deposit at Prize Picks. Be sure to use the code Awesemo to receive a 100% first deposit bonus up to $100. We have a nice 11-game MLB slate tonight. Nice to get a larger slate. Typically allows you to play some offenses that are a little bit better and will still be relatively low owned, as opposed to the shorter slates where you kind of just end up playing a lot of really bad offenses and hoping to get lucky. I think slates of this size are a little bit more fun, so excited for that tonight. As always, we're going to take a look at three of the top tournament stacks and three of the top tournament pitchers on FanDuel using the top stacks tool and the top pitchers tool on Awesemo.com. Starting with the top stacks, number 3. The Atlanta Braves are projected for 1% aggregate ownership. They have a 5% chance of being the top stack. They're taking on Marcus Stroman tonight, and they have a 4.5 implied run total. Stroman is a decent pitcher. He does a good job getting ground balls, and that's been the case this year as well. 3.29 xFIP. 22.6% strikeout percentage, a little bit higher than his norm, but pretty much in line with what you get from Stroman. He has been a little home run prone this year, allowing over 2 home runs per 9 innings. That really stands out in the context of home runs being down overall this year, but you're only talking about a few starts. So I don't really expect that to be a long-term issue for Stroman. He's just a solid pitcher that typically is able to avoid hard contact, but you do have plenty of power in this Atlanta lineup, and Stroman's going to allow you to put the ball in play. Not getting much ownership here. I'm always willing to go to a team like Atlanta that has a lot of power, also has some speed upside, and just isn't getting any ownership at all. They're also not particularly expensive. Ozzie Albies, most likely leading off, is $4,000 on FanDuel. No other player in this lineup tops 4K. Matt Olson and Austin Riley are both $3,700. Every other player is $3,200 or less. So relatively easy to get to this stack as well. Number 2, the Miami Marlins, 4% projected ownership, 5% chance of being the top scoring stack. Miami's in a pretty big boom bust spot against Josiah Gray and the Washington Nationals. Gray has been very good this season, with the exception of walks, but he's struck out 30.1% of hitters, 31% of hitters, has a 3.58 xFIP, but he has walked 12% of hitters and he has allowed 1.26 home runs per 9. Gray is someone who is, still a young pitcher. He clearly has talent, but he's also someone that I think has a very wide range of outcomes as far as his game-to-game performance goes. And when you're walking hitters at that rate, you can really get yourself into trouble. One other thing that I think to note in the context of how offenses are performing this year is that in previous seasons, it was typically difficult to win tournaments without a bunch of home runs. Less so on FanDuel than on a site like DraftKings, but still, home runs are kind of king. On FanDuel, runs and RBIs are weighted a little bit more. So it's a little bit easier to win tournaments by just, putting together hits, walks, and runs. But this year, with home runs being down, I think it just becomes even more appealing to target pitchers like Gray, who, they may give up a home run here or there, but even if he just has trouble with his control and walks a bunch of guys, and that leads to Miami being able to throw up, 5, 6, 7 runs on singles and doubles, that just is going to put you in a better situation this year than it would have in previous years because of the humidors in every park and because MLB appears to be using the deadest baseballs they could possibly use. So I think that's just something to keep in mind from an overall strategy point, but also when you're looking at pitchers like Josiah Gray for Miami tonight. And number 1, the top tournament stack, the Houston Astros, projected for 10% ownership, but also with a 10% chance of being the top scoring stack. They're taking on Taylor Hearn and the Texas Rangers. They have a 4.8 implied run total. Not quite the same Houston lineup that we're used to. Obviously, Carlos Correa is not on the team anymore. Jose Altuve is out, but you still have some quality bats in the middle of this lineup. A lot of power with guys like Yordan Alvarez, Kyle Tucker, and then you have and Alex Bregman. And then you just have, quality overall hitters like Michael Brantley and Yuli Gurriel, a close to minimum salary Chase McCormick, most likely leading off. He's somebody that gives you some stolen base upside as well. So pretty appealing team to get to. Not a bad spot here against Taylor Hearn. He's kind of just an average run-of-the-mill pitcher. So far this year in his starts, he does have a 24% strikeout percentage and a 3.66 xFIP, but he's also walked 10% of hitters and he's allowed 1.7 home runs per 9. Certainly good enough to shut down the Astros any given night, but I think this is a spot where if you play it out, 100 times or 1,000 times, Houston's coming out on top pretty frequently. So they look like a solid stack, even at 10% aggregate ownership. Now, looking at the top 3 tournament pitchers on FanDuel, number 3, Sandy Alcantara, $9,500 price tag, 5% ownership projection, 6% chance of being the top scoring pitcher. He has not posted great strikeout numbers so far this year. He's only struck out 19.7% of hitters. That is a little bit concerning because Alcantara previously in his career hasn't been a great strikeout guy. He has very good stuff. And at the end of last season, for the last month or so, his strikeout numbers really, really increased. So I know one of the bigger talking points in season-long fantasy this year was, is Sandy Alcantara the guy that we saw at the very end of last season where he was striking everyone out? Or is he someone that has very good stuff and is still a very good pitcher, but isn't going to strike guys out at a really high rate? So far through his first 3 starts, like I said, 19.7% strikeout percentage, but he has still pitched well. And he's also going deep in the games. He's throwing a lot of pitches. He's thrown 83, 95, and 98 pitches in the 3 starts that he made. Washington, not the most formidable offense. You just kind of have to work your way around Juan Soto, Josh Bell, and Nelson Cruz, and then should be able to have plenty of success against the rest of these guys. So he is expensive. You are essentially paying up to be contrarian, but he is also projected to be a bit underowned. Number 2, Kevin Gausman, $10,200 price tag. If you watched the DraftKings tournament video, I mentioned him there, where he was really cheap and pretty popular at 8,700. Now it's kind of the opposite thing on FanDuel. He's not that easy to get to because he is expensive and you're paying more for him than most other pitchers, but he's only projected for 3% ownership. He has a 7% chance of being the top scoring pitcher. He's facing the Boston Red Sox. Gausman has been excellent so far with Toronto. I was pretty concerned about him coming over to a new team, and specifically a new team in the AL East. He's kind of just been very back and forth throughout his career where, particularly his time with Washington, you would get a stretch of games where he was fantastic. He was throwing a splitter a lot. He was borderline unhittable. And then it was just be like he woke up and forgot what he was supposed to be doing. And he'd go out there throwing fastballs right down the middle all game and just get lit up. And that would go on for a while. And then so I was a little bit nervous that you had him leaving San Francisco, going to a new team that maybe was going to handle him differently, because I'm not completely convinced that he knows how he needs to pitch. I think he's very reliant on the people around him to figure that out. So I was a little bit concerned. And then also you're getting out of the best pitchers park in baseball. You're going into the AL East. That's a tough adjustment as well. But to his credit, he's been absolutely fantastic so far this year. He has a 30.1% strikeout percentage, 1.82 xFIP. He has not allowed a walk. He has not allowed a home run. Just a really, really good pitcher. And so far, we're seeing that success that he had last year carry over. He's always been ultra, ultra talented. So it's someone where it's pretty easy to buy into his success. This isn't success that came out of nowhere from some like journeyman pitcher. This is someone that was supposed to have been doing this for the last, better part of a decade now. And he kind of just took longer than expected to get to this point. But he's been excellent with Toronto, just like he was excellent last year with San Francisco. He's also thrown at least 80 pitches in all 3 of his starts. So that's good to see. And number 1, Chris Bassett, $9,900 price tag. Very similar to Gausman in that you're overpaying a little bit, but you're also getting a very good pitcher at low ownership. 3% projected ownership for Bassett, 7% chance of being the top scoring pitcher. He's taking on the St. Louis Cardinals, who have a 3.5 implied run total. So far this year, Bassett's thrown at least 90 pitches in all 3 of his starts. He has struck out 28.5% of hitters. He has a 2.9 xFIP, and his ability to throw 90 plus pitches is even extra important on FanDuel because it does increase the chances of him getting you 6 innings and 3 earned runs or less for a quality start. So to recap, the top 3 tournament stacks on FanDuel: number 3, the Atlanta Braves; number 2, the Miami Marlins; and number 1, the Houston Astros. And the top 3 tournament pitchers: number 3, Sandy Alcantara; number 2, Kevin Gausman; and number 1, Chris Bassett.